My next guest is Jason Tramm. Jason has 25 years experience as a conductor, music director, and university professor. He has his own production company, MidAtlantic Artistic Productions, and he is executive director of the Light Opera of New Jersey. Really interesting talk. Thank you, Jason, for taking the time. If you like classical music, his channel I really can recommend. Please like this video. Let's begin. I want to begin with a question that I've written down, because you, in your intro video in your channel, you say this sentence, which is, it's my goal to roll back the curtain and reveal the person behind the art. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
As a conductor, I work with orchestras and soloists, and I also produce concerts in the classical and the crossover world. So I find that people in the audience don't necessarily see the workings of the artist and what it takes to be an artist. And I just love to tell stories.
Wow.
So for me to bring my artist colleagues to the public attention to talk about the challenges of the arts and to the challenges and that the artists face, I think is really, really important. And I think a podcast like what I do is one of the ways that people are doing that. I think it's really fantastic.
Yes. So kind of the goal, as you said, is getting to that deeper level with these people and see how they how their day to day is.
Yeah, and it came out of but my busy conducting schedule was halted, just like all of my colleagues. COVID stopped everyone's performing, so we had to
Oh,
what do we want to do?
Right. So that was when you started the podcast?
Yeah, and I started in June of 2020 as everything crashed around me.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So you said kind of see the problems or the challenges, you said, with being an artist. Can you tell me, because you have done so many podcasts, well, what is a common response?
There's always an artistic career always comes with lots of challenges. Even before COVID, there's always financial challenges and the traveling. There's just so many obstacles to being a professional artist. And the COVID just made it even more interesting. And I was so impressed by what my friends were doing, my colleagues, the opera singers, and the crossover pop singers were doing. That I decided to say, I miss having these conversations. So that my son is 23, or he was 21 at the time, but he's 23 now, and we produce the podcast together. So he does the technical end of it, and I do the musical end of it.
Okay. Wow, I'm also 23, so then we are the same year.
You and my son Quentin. Yeah, I'm an old man.
Okay. No, don't say that. Okay, but because I mean, this is kind of a really interesting subject for me, because when I've looked at the classical music and how we understand funding in the world, here in Scandinavia, it's very straightforward in a way, because the state give us a lot of money, or the state
funds
do this, and we have a few sponsors, like some big car companies, are there, a few times, like in a few concerts, they show up with their cars and their new models and so forth, but mostly it's state funded. But I know that the American model is completely different.
Completely different, yeah. And I work in Europe, and I conduct guest conducting in Europe. It's very different. And in America, it's mostly private sponsorship.
Right.
The role of the conductor in America is to raise funds, and that's a lot of what I do.
Right. Right, because this is so interesting to me, and like how your day to day, and how does that work? Are you like a company who cold calling a lot of rich people?
No, it's
how does it work?
Well, I'm hired. I have different parts of my career. So my conducting career, I teach at a university full time. I'm a professor at Seton Hall University, so I'm a tenured professor, and I teach. I also have a choral society who engages me, who hires me to music direct, and they raise money. Their board raises money, and I spend it. Basically.
Right. Perfect.
I have a production company where I produce my own concerts, and I raise money, and I'll do productions in New York City, or I make projects happen. And I also work for other theaters. Theaters will hire me, engage me to book orchestras. So I've given myself and I've created a lot of my own opera. I founded my own opera company. I founded my own symphony when I was younger. So if I saw something that didn't exist, I create.
Right, because I mean, this is the feeling that I get, and I will probably show this in the intro that have done for you. But I mean, when looking at your YouTube channel and your website and seeing that the Light Opera of New Jersey and stuff like that, it seems to me like you are a very productive individual, like someone that gets stuff done, and
I've
that
always
you
been very I have a lot of energy, and
yeah
I very late. I love to work with people,
right
and that's most of the business is working with people.
right
And most of the funders and the people who donate come to me and say, "Man, I love your work. How can we get involved in it?" So it's
wow
really a blessing like that. I get to work with people who really care about the art form, want to see good things happen, and it's been a very challenging. And I've survived 2 economic downturns. So
right
COVID didn't really scare me because
yeah
I've been through it before.
wow
So
yeah. Tell me about that, about the economic downturns, because I mean, if I am a rich person and I'm giving funding to people, then when my money is shrinking, I don't know what to do. Then I'm going to kick you out first, or
that's correct, and
yeah
that was the case in 2009. I ran a larger opera company, New Jersey State Opera. New Jersey State
okay
Opera is a large state entity,
right
and the 2009 economic collapse came, and it just drove them to bankruptcy.
right
So I survived that, and I saw that there needed to be a different way moving forward.
right
I lost my house. I mean, I had a full-time contract with that company,
oh
so it was
wow
devastating. I had 4 children,
oh
and so I'm
wow
single dad raising
shit
4 kids. It was devastating.
oh no
So, but
that's
but
insane and
you
sorry,
learn
and
the most
this is in
when,
2009. Sorry,
yeah, it
sorry.
says,
Yeah,
that's okay. I love these conversations, and you learn the most. That
yeah,
was a devastating time personally and business wise and
yeah,
musically,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
that's when you learn what you're made of.
Right,
So
right,
I redesigned the way I approach my art and my music. I founded my own company. I started getting very hungry. I learned how to produce with less because there was less
right.
resources to have.
Yeah,
So, and you learn that you can maintain quality in different ways. Instead of hiring singers from the Metropolitan Opera, I went with the
right,
young singers who were going to be at the Metropolitan Opera.
right.
Instead
Smart.
of hiring, huge set pieces and paying union stage costs, you work with
Right,
smaller theaters who don't have the union. There's
right,
different ways to approach.
right,
The most important thing is maintaining quality.
right. Wow. You're, I like this. Tell me about just I'm so interested in how the economics for an opera house work when the state just doesn't give you money. So tell me about that process, or
I mean, like for example, it depends on the company. Everyone's different, but
yeah,
like my smaller regional company, Light
yeah,
Opera New Jersey, which is a growing professional company.
okay,
It has its roots in community theater, but
right,
is professionalizing and it does beautiful work and has been around since the 1990s.
right.
When I took that, I always said I wouldn't take another opera company after the state opera went bankrupt. But then
Right.
when it was offered to me, like I would love to do it again. I'm an opera person at heart. I love
Yeah.
to do symphony and opera.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah.
And it was the perfect timing for it. So to grow a company, to build. So they had really good financial bones. They
Okay.
managed themselves very well. So when I came in,
Yeah, sorry, who had good financial bones?
this is Light Opera of New Jersey. It's
Right,
my new
right,
company.
right. Yeah.
This
And
is
this is what, yeah,
in my second year with them, and we're
right.
like a very exciting season up ahead. It's balancing ticket sales expectations
Mm,
and starting to raise money, increasing the way they raise money. I'm
right,
approaching new people.
right,
Um, Once again, producing quality. Now, the number
right,
one mission of any arts organization is to produce quality art. One,
right,
if you
right,
do that, you're worthy of supporting, and you will find donors.
right. And
So
tell me what is the offer? Because let's say that I'm calling you and I'm selling you a phone bill, right? Then I'm going to say, hey, we're cheaper or better or
no.
whatever.
I say that I show them the video of like we just did 3 shows. We put together a highlight reel of the opera, the musical
Right,
theater, and
right,
then concerts we do. And
right,
I say, be a part of this excitement. Get to be
right.
around the excitement. Be a part of
Okay,
this as it grows,
right,
and as we become the regional force for
right,
opera and operetta in this neck of the woods. For us,
right.
it's right outside of New York City. It's a wonderful place to be. I've kind
Yeah,
of for in my neck of the woods. So
yeah.
and that company I think is going to be very successful. I think that there's not a lot of competition for their niche, which is a
Okay.
challenge. And we're not doing extravagant production, but we're doing really high level productions and carefully choosing the pieces and engaging young and up and coming singers and making a good name for ourselves.
Right. Because you mentioned quality, and I want to get to that later. But just in my head, like how many sponsors do you need? Like, or I don't know what is I don't know what's appropriate to ask here, but like how much money ish do you get from one sponsor?
It just depends on the sponsor. I mean, you just ask, and they come where they come.
Okay.
So we have a board of directors. So the companies in America will have board of directors who make financial contributions to the company. Who run the company.
Right. Okay.
I'm a hired employee, so I work for the board of directors.
Right.
And they send me out, and I'm doing my best to raise money for them in different places, trying to bring in new sponsors, new board members. And that's a lot of my job when I work for different groups. Right.
That, I mean, selling, I love selling. It sounds really fun. Or what do you think?
Oskar, what's your background?
Yeah, so I just finished in classical singing in Norway's Academy of Music, my bachelor, and now I don't really know what to do.
You're like so many. You're just starting the journey. I love it. That's beautiful.
Right. So I have a lot of things that I want to do, but I don't think that opera is the right way for me, just because I like to do a lot of different stuff. So now I'm just trying out doing some interviews, and I'm running a startup that I started 2 months ago, and I'm trying to find a way to monetize art. So that's what I'm trying to do. So basically, So before we went on this call, I have been calling for 2 hours to try to get people to buy my stuff. So I know that process.
You can never be afraid of hearing the word no. Right. It's just you just have to expect that's going to be the case in many instances, and you keep asking. And number one, you have to believe in your product.
Right.
If for me to go and ask people to donate to a production I'm doing, it's not for me. This is to make beautiful art that's going to affect thousands of people.
Right. And you said it really beautiful there, and it's believe in your product, because I hear when you talk that you believe in your product and you believe it's important.
I am my product, so it's very personal.
Yeah. And you want it to succeed, and it's part of your identity, right? And when you're calling someone or when you're talking to someone, I mean, they can feel that energy. And I absolutely think that is one of the strongest suits that we have, if we, as you say, can believe in it. So, but like, can I ask how many ish sponsors do you have?
It depends on the project.
Right. It's project based.
Yeah. So I've got multiple projects running concurrently.
Right.
So I've got a very full plate of things I do. I have the contract jobs that I'm an employee of.
Mm-hmm.
I have my own things I'm producing, and then I guest conduct.
Right. Yeah.
Each one's separate, but they all kind of connect. And sometimes I find synchronicities between my teaching job and this performance might work together and help cross-pollinate. I've been doing this so long. I'm 47 years old. I've been doing this a long time.
Right.
And I have donors who will support a certain project type.
Yeah. Okay.
I have donors who will support symphony, donors who support opera, not necessarily the same people.
Right. Okay. So some people like more, like you said, operas or symphonies?
I love them both. They're both equally as important to me.
Yeah.
I just love to conduct, and I just started. This is new for me. I just released my professional choir's first recording.
Okay.
I just put that on my YouTube channel. It's the hardest music I've ever conducted. Super dissonant, very challenging to listen to and to sing.
Right.
And I'm doing recordings, and this company, this choir is just called the MidAtlantic Chamber Choir. MidAtlantic is Jason's groups.
Okay.
I have a MidAtlantic Philharmonic, which is my orchestral players, and I have a MidAtlantic Chamber Choir, which is my professional choir.
Right.
I just released the first recordings of those. And that was exciting to me as an artist, because I've always wanted to have a pro group of singers that I could work with on the hardest music and to really challenge each other. And it kind of means a lot, even though it's not the type of thing that's going to get a lot of clicks on YouTube, because the music is challenging. I mean, it's challenging to listen to, challenging to sing.
Right.
But I think
the clicks doesn't have to be everything.
It's not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so
but I love. I thrive on diversity. I've always been like that. I guess I'm attention deficit. I love to do a lot of things at once.
Right.
And the life tells you about what kind of, like, I've been very fortunate in my career. I've always known the direction I should take, because it just kind of opens up for me that way. It's like,
Right.
I wonder if I should do this or this, and then that's like right there. So I'm like,
Right.
but
Wow. So what I hear when you talk is like, I feel like you're an entrepreneur, and you're doing stuff, and you're out there and you're trying out new things. And I feel that this, maybe in Scandinavia, we lack this in musicians. Maybe we lack this a bit, and maybe you Americans are better at it because you have to. Maybe, I don't know.
I've heard this from my European colleagues. I'm working with some colleagues in Italy. I'm guest conducting in Italy next.
Right.
And this entrepreneurial spin to music is a little different because it's with the government sponsorship.
Right.
But I find that, when I work with my colleagues in Europe, we can make some really cool projects happen.
Right.
Like,
right.
You have both ends of the fence. Like, I'm conducting in Austria in March. I'm conducting in Italy, doing some projects, and
Right.
I'm trying to bring my European colleagues over here.
Right.
I find we work best when we collaborate. I find that most things in life, I really like to collaborate.
Absolutely. So a mixture of them, being able to do both is nice. It's kind of your answer.
I really enjoy working with, we don't have here in America, we don't have state choirs and state orchestras. I mean, that would be a dream come true. An ensemble that plays together all the time. When I was young, I was conducting in Romania, and I'm thinking, looking at the state orchestra whose full-time job it is to play together. Professional orchestras, but they're mostly pickup. Unless you're the New York Philharmonic or the Philadelphia Orchestra or the Metropolitan Opera, almost all the rest are not full-time jobs. They're part-time jobs.
Yes. Right. But they're private also, right? How much do you get, any funding from the state?
Depends on the organization. So like opera, for example, gets money from the county to produce, but it's not an overwhelming amount, maybe $10,000, $15,000 a year.
Right. Okay. So, nothing.
But something. I mean, we'll take it, certainly, and we'll use it for good use.
Right.
But mostly it's ticket sales, private donations, and then we're growing into, as we're professionalizing, we need to get more sponsors, more donors.
Yeah.
And the constant challenge.
Right.
During an economic downturn, it is much harder to raise money.
Yeah.
At the same time, people need art even more.
Right.
So I double down.
Right. And is it an economic downturn now?
I think so. I think we're definitely say it is.
Right.
But at the same time, I think we've found some dedicated people who are really interested in keeping the art form alive.
Right. That's good. That's very good. So
I'm very careful with every dollar I spend. It's not my money. So I'm very careful making sure that I negotiate every orchestra contract. I make sure every singer is the right fit and is carefully.
Right. I believe you. So you mentioned quality. You said that everything needs to be at the best quality, and you can.
I won't do it anymore. I won't even take a project anymore if I don't think the quality is going to be up to my standards.
Right.
If they want the cheapest thing possible, they can get that from somebody else. I'm not going to. I'm at the point now in my career where everything I touch, I want it to be at that level. I want my name on things that are, it just comes with the point in my life. I just don't want to do things that I would, in the past, I've had to for financial reasons, but I'm like, I want to make sure everything is the type of project that I'm going to be proud of, that I can put, that I can put out there on my YouTube channel, that I can put out proudly in my communities.
Yeah.
And I found YouTube is an incredible way to get the word out about what I'm doing. I mean, people see the projects, and we have 1,950 subscribers, which doesn't sound like very much, but
no, it's a lot more than me.
It's a process. My son is he's the YouTube guy. He's like,
okay.
We carefully tag each video. We do better thumbnails now. It's all part of growing a YouTube channel. Like, I learned from people your age. I've had to watch a million YouTube videos about how to grow a community, how to provide for a community, how to make it interesting and dynamic. Because if you look in my niche, which is classical music, there aren't a lot of big channels that are not like record companies.
Right.
The stars in my field. Yeah. In my field, I looked up the biggest star tenor in my field. He has 5,000 subscribers.
Right.
I'm knocking on the door. My son there, I'm like, okay, we're doing something interesting.
That's very good. Yeah. But can we
been able to interview those people?
Right. But can we get can you make me understand the word quality better? Like how do you mentioned something that you're proud of, but tell me
Yes.
what is quality?
For me, it's the best possible artistic outcome,
Right.
Given the financial limitations. But regardless of the financial, I learned when after the State Opera went bankrupt, which was a big professional company with a union orchestra and a union choir and high budget overhead.
Right.
I said, you know what? How can I achieve quality, but with the budget of today, with the challenges we face? And I reevaluated everything, and I came up with new ideas, new approaches, and afterwards, I'm conducting more than I ever did in 2008.
Right. Wow.
Way more than I ever did. Now I'm in demand because I've learned, the conductors who only can produce with a high budget level, there's only a few of those jobs around.
Yeah, it is. So and I mean this is kind of the bread and butter, right? That we both love our industry, but unfortunately there's not a lot of jobs, and I mean it's I mean especially here, and when I'm talking to an American, we are very privileged with having the funding that we do, but we compared to the people that are educated here, we need to do stuff that you created, or like you say, we need to find solutions, because that's what I heard now. You said you had a worldview, it changed, and you found a solution so that you can be proud and you can create something that you founded artistically amazing. So then can I ask, what are some of those? Summary. Right? What did you say?
That's a great summary.
Right. So then what is kind of those solutions that you came through? How did you, in a smaller budget, or how did you find solutions? What if we can like make a little list of kind of the changes that you did?
I can give you some of the characteristics. A lot of it is just, me bringing, finding a dedicated group of musicians who might work but excellent, great musicians who will work for the budgets we have. I mean, honestly, like, I work with a lot of union American orchestras. There aren't that many union jobs anymore in the New York City market. If you're not the Metropolitan Opera, New York Philharmonic, or Broadway, but I know so many players who sub there and play there who want to play. They don't want to just take the occasional job, maybe twice or three times a year. They have to work 12 months a year. So I hire 12 months a year now. I'm going to get off this call. I'm going to book 2 orchestras for concerts in November. People have asked me, either I'm conducting them or I'm producing them, but I'm involved. I've also learned that when I was at the beginning of my conducting career, I was like, this is mine. I don't collaborate, because collaboration in America means giving up the baton.
Giving up the what?
It's very hard.
Sorry,
like I would have to give the baton.
I didn't hear what you say. I didn't hear what you say. Giving up the what?
The baton. If I'm conducting, there can only be one conductor on the podium.
All right. The
so let's say I wanted to produce with another artistic organization.
Okay.
Who's going to conduct the show? I'm the conductor, right? But now on my podcast, I've interviewed 50 conductors with the Med all over the world, colleagues in different countries, and now I'm much more willing to produce with another person and not have to worry about that, because I don't care. I mean, I do lots of conducting. I don't have to be the only conductor anymore. So I've become a producer more than just a conductor. It's just part of what I do. Podcasting has taught me so much about collaboration and learning from my colleagues. Now the podcast, which I came up when I wasn't conducting, has led me to more conducting jobs than I know what to do with.
Wow.
Because a lot of my colleagues have ideas, and we can work together and make them happen.
Wow. And this is because of YouTube, you said?
Well, YouTube helps spread the message.
Right.
And YouTube has helped people discover my work who never would have heard of me before, like yourself.
Met
across the Atlantic, and I love these connections. I just think it's so interesting. I learn from people in your generation all the time, because YouTube is really my son's grown up with YouTube. He replaced television for him years ago. For me, it's kind of like a discovery, and it's the relation, because I discuss my musical points of view. I interview colleagues. I put my conducting up there, and the fact that people watch it just amazes me and kind of surprises me.
Wow, that's really beautiful. But so like we talk about these solutions, because if I'm thinking without no experience, I would think that if you have a smaller budget now than you did before, and you have to come up with the solutions. Like kind of the things that I'm thinking about is maybe doing, maybe a smaller choir, or maybe a less set design, or maybe just one makeup artist, or maybe no makeup artist, or focusing on this, maybe getting paying someone to do 3 projects instead of 1, but then getting the pay per one down, but then it's still a good deal because they get to do 3. Like, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, we look for synchronicities. I find that yes, for one, the number, like I used to have a 65-piece orchestra in some of those shows.
Wow.
Not anymore. We use reductions.
Yeah.
We're at 20, 30 players instead of 60. So right off the bat, a smaller theater doesn't need as big an orchestra, right?
That's true.
A big union theater. I made my Carnegie Hall debut in 2015. And we had a 65-piece orchestra on the stage, and that cost $150,000 for the night. Right, I raised all that money. It was insane, and it nearly killed me. But it was, I would never replace that experience of getting on that great world concert venue. But at the same time, I can produce now 4 concerts, and in smaller, more intimate venues that targeted, and I can co-produce the concert with 2 other partners.
Right.
I look for co-producing opportunities. For opera productions, I co-produce with other organizations where we can bring down each other's costs. We can find ways to co-market. It's looking for ways, creative ways to achieve the goal with this quality.
So tell me about one of these partners. Like who would that be? Another conductor? Another one that has a
could be. Yeah. So let's see. I've got friends in New York City who run small companies. They'll bring me on as a conductor or as a chorus master, and we'll co-produce a show, possibly. I've done that before. So it's finding people who are, who have similar level of quality, who also can help bring down costs. If you work for my company, I work for your company, we work together, we bring down the costs. You already have a production that's just produced. Can we do that production? I'll hire you as the director. There's always to approach this instead of recreating the wheel for each production.
Right. And then how do you get down the cost? You get down the cost because you can share a venue for one cost, or
we can share a venue. We can split the cost of the production down the middle and split the ticket revenue. That way that one of my companies isn't taking the whole risk.
Right. Which is very important when you're running a business, minimizing risk.
And, I have a production company, and I produce for a lot of different, I think 5 American states I produce, and usually a theater will engage me, and there's no risk in that at all. So I have a mixed portfolio of projects. A couple that I'm producing, and I'm taking 100% of the risk on. Doing a concert in New York City with a 40-piece orchestra and a soloist from Europe, and but usually even one of those has a back end. Maybe that soloist in Europe is giving me a concert in another venue.
Right.
So I'm always looking for collaborations, co-productions, and I'm constantly pitching projects to different people. So, and I'm ready to go, to make, I can make that happen. I can make a concert happen pretty much anywhere in America now. I've got the resources. I used to tour with a company, and I met a lot of people all over the country that could help book orchestras, book choirs. It's become a very interesting part of my career because I love creativity, and I love exploring what's possible.
Wow, that's a really good word, because what I hear when I listen to you now is I hear creativity. I hear someone who has a problem or has multiple problems, and they are trying to find a way to solve them. That's what I hear. For me, that's creativity, or that's very creative idea. You have a problem and you have to think, how can I solve this? Do you feel
these days it's just I get just as much satisfaction. I just did a big concert this past Sunday in my summer. I have a summer. I'm the music director at Ocean Grove. Ocean Grove is a 6,500-seat theater.
Wow!
And they go all summer. I'm the music director of music ministries here. I do religious music. I also do classical music. And that last concert had a 40-piece orchestra and a 120-voice choir in a 6,000-seat theater. And great. It was a great opportunity. But to watch it come together, I also brought another conductor in who's got a very big name in America, and he conducted part of it, I conducted part of it, and it was really special.
Wow.
I just find I'm always looking for you. Like I get just as much satisfaction at putting the project together as I do actually getting up on the stage.
Right.
It's my training. I love
that. Right. So then the question that I want to ask you is, do you feel like this creative process of putting the project together, of getting figuring out different solutions, do you feel that that is a thing that is bringing down the project, making it less, or is it making it better? So what I'm trying to say is, would it be better if someone just give you the money, do whatever you want, or is it actually better when you do this, because then you find cool creative stuff? Do you understand?
It's interesting. I mean, I always say this, like when you don't have a big budget, you have to have talent.
Right.
You have to bring on partners with talent.
Right.
So, it's the same, like, there are some really creative companies in New York City doing great work in like abandoned subway cars with people drinking beer.
Right.
Because they know that it's going to be an interesting, edgy project. It's in Brooklyn. It's meant to, and they're doing great work. Wow. Well, sometimes the Metropolitan Opera, which can cost $1 million of production, is a little steep, right? It's like the budget doesn't necessarily guarantee artistic quality or artistic merit.
Right.
You think opera started in 1600 in the small chambers. It wasn't started in gigantic theaters. That came later. Anyway, and you look at the Italian Baroque opera, where opera became just not a lot of great music at that time, but a lot of like showy set pieces and Deus Ex Machina. The music was secondary to the. So the big budget doesn't necessarily guarantee quality. I see great directors working with limited means who have the ability to get to the next level.
Right.
I look for that now. I'm looking at this moment because I can't afford big, huge budgets anymore than I have in the past. But, as we grow, we do bigger things. But I think it's right now in this economy, it's very important that we're careful.
Right.
But to continue to do great work.
Right. So like kind of my proposal or how I've come to it in my head is that classical music or art is amazing, and it will be amazing when we are dead, right?
Yep.
The problem that we have is we say we have no jobs. My friends, it's harder to get a job now than for 50 years ago, right? So then the question is why? And I think that the answer to that is the audience is decreasing. And I think that to solve that problem, I think that you are one of the people with this kind of mentality that can get us in the right direction, meaning entrepreneurs trying different things, trying to find solutions, and therefore creating something that works in that setting. And then you can find something that, wow, this was really good, and then you can focus on that. Other people can see that worked, they can do the same. And maybe and of course it's brilliant with a big budget and stuff like that, but the problem maybe becomes that if you just get the money and you don't see any outcome of who shows up or not, then maybe it will become more stiff, or it will not relate as much to the audience. That's my belief. What do you think about that?
I think that's really, really very accurate and very astute. People. I teach university, so I see all these very talented kids coming out of school, and there's less work for them than there ever has been in my industry. Mm-hmm. The industry has shrunk. The pay per performance has shrunk since I started in the industry. So I've seen that in real time.
Right.
But there are still singers who are gonna sing. New York is, in my neck of the woods, New York, New Jersey, there are so many great artists. I look for those great artists who have something to say. Right. And I give them a chance to say it as best I can.
Wow.
I'm running auditions next weekend. I'm going to hear 75 singers who I have not heard before, who are going to knock my socks off, and I'm going to think about projects where I can, utilize their talents, because I see this overabundance of talent.
Wow.
And it breaks my heart in some ways that there are more people graduating conservatory now than there ever have been in the history of music.
Yes, true. The one that I went to has increased with 100% in the last 10 years.
And I think that's powerful, but I see, it saddens to me that I see a lot of the students go in different directions. I mean, that's a natural progression in the field. People may run a theater company. That's great. they may take their expertise and do something completely different. I see that too.
Right.
On my show, on my podcast, we were looking at opera singers who were doing one was making TikTok vocal performance videos. She sings the Metropolitan Opera.
Wow.
Another one was doing finding unique solutions to unprecedented challenges. Yeah. And I think every artist has to find their unique way, because it's not unless you get like the Met Orchestra or the Chicago Symphony or the Oslo Opera Company. Unless you get that job, it's going to have to be creative.
Right.
You're going to have to, you're going to have to find a way. I think YouTube is have something to say, build a community, find a unique niche, create a chamber music festival.
So this is really accurate, and as you said, like, perfect for you. I'm amazed if you get that job. The people that get to sit in these orchestras or there, but if we have increased the amount of people that go to universities and the amount of jobs has gone down, then it's logical that we should also teach what we're talking about now, which is basically entrepreneurship, how to create value, or how to get funding, or how to create something that you're proud of, and that you can sell tickets, for example.
It's a constant balancing act. Sometimes I try out a project. When I was younger, I tried out things and they didn't work so well. But then I learned, and then you adapt and you change and you restructure the model. Am I paying too little? Am I paying too much? Like you try to find, am I asking too much for the projects from the sponsors who come to me? I'm constantly refining this. I have artists I trust. I always talk to friends and colleagues at other companies. The podcast has been great for that, because I've learned from these greats in my field, like some of the top of business.
Wow.
It reminds me, like, okay, they're just doing the same thing, but at the next level up. Because, honestly, even at the major places like the Met, the budget's not 100% secure. I mean, it's not sustainable right now.
Right.
We're living on endowment, honestly.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see the tectonic changes at the top of the field, which filter all the way down to people like on the lower ends, like myself.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you're talking about experience. You tried something, you failed, you're getting better, right? And now you're not failing anymore. And now you said it with you lost your house in 2009. And now you're in another economic downturn, and you're talking about it like it's nothing. You're like, yeah.
It's funny, I realigned my priorities. I had to decide. I had a doctorate in music at the time, and I'm like, what do I want to do with this? Here I am, after putting my heart and soul into this company that was an important company, and had many of the greatest opera singers in the world that sung with this company, and the history and the legacy, and I grew up in it. I had to divorce myself from that and to start over again.
Wow.
That was really hard to do, and it really took
I can imagine.
But ever since then, I've just put myself out there and worked hard and built up again. And now people are like, "How come you're working all the time?" I'm like, "Well, I turn down work. I'm so busy." It's it's become such a there's just so much to be. I'm excited about it. Like, I wake up every morning. I'm like, I got to hire 3 bassoons for this project, and I have to send a perspective for this project to this donor. The sponsor's asking me about that, and it's very exciting to me. Every morning I wake up with purpose and drive, and my board of directors of this company needs my proposals, and this one needs that. And then I'm booking guest conducting again, which is I can't wait to travel again. I haven't traveled in a long time, so it's been since COVID. I was supposed to do my day.
The pandemic.
But ready to jump back in again.
Yeah, well, that's beautiful. I mean, to have that drive. And for me, I don't want to talk too much about it, but I'm doing what I'm doing now, which is I'm trying to make money with my company, and I've done it before, and I've worked with I've done projects for big corporations before, but now I'm completely alone in this, and I finished school. It's not a security net for me anymore. I don't get money for being at school. It's just me, and if it fails, it's my fault. And instead of that,
the stakes are high. The stakes are high, but that's what's the best.
Exactly, because I've never been happier. Honestly, never been happier, because I am so energetic and I have so much to lose. So I work so hard, and it's nothing better.
I look at it like, you can't blame the boss if you're the boss, right?
Right. That's perfect. Yeah, that is so true. I am the boss. Boss of no one but myself.
Myself, yeah.
Okay, so tell me now we've talked a little bit about business, but tell me your why is classical music beautiful, or why, what is it, if you have a piece, if it's an opera or
Wow.
if it's a symphony, what is it that is beautiful? Is it the orchestration, or is it the whatever? Like, tell me.
Depends. It's magic, right? It's
Right.
magic. I'll just give you an example. I just conducted a new Beethoven. I thought I'd done all the Beethoven overtures. I've done so much Beethoven in my career,
Right.
and I found one that fit perfectly with this concert. It was he wrote it. It was 120 Opus 124.
Okay.
Consecration of the house. If I had
Right.
this, I've never done that one before. I'm like, interesting. Okay, I see why,
Wow.
because it's not really, doesn't, he wrote it after taking time off. Beethoven, after he made his big innovations, took time off and regrouped. He was
Okay.
in a bad place. He came back and he was studying Bach and Haydn and Handel.
Right. Yeah.
So this piece is completely an homage to Bach and Handel, especially Handel. And I was closing the concert with Handel with and so it fit perfectly. So I'm like, and I learned it quickly, but I'm a very fast study. But to me, it's so exciting because every piece is its own unique world.
Right.
So, for me, it's learning the works of the great composers who put this down on paper. I have to learn it, absorb it, and then give it to other people, and then act as an electrical conduit to the audience to bring the energy of this music so that people can enjoy it. And I just love that process. I love the process of discovery. Some of my favorite time, and I say this is different than the production part, which I love just as much, is giving budgets, producing budgets, coming up with a spreadsheet, doing the overhead, hiring the players, paying the players. I do all that stuff.
Right.
But the other side of me is, so I enjoy that part, but then I really enjoy
Yeah.
the discovery phase where I come to determine what Beethoven wrote, why he wrote it, and then I get in front of the orchestra and make it come alive.
Wow.
And that's the magic of classical music, is that it's limitless. No matter how many times I'm conducting Beethoven Fifth for the 15th, 16th, and 17th time in Austria and in Budapest in March. Well, I've done it a lot and I've got it from memory, but every time I open that score, it's like looking at a painting at the Louvre from another angle. And it's totally different because I'm different. I'm a different person than I was 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago. When I conducted it for the first time in Romania. They're a different orchestra. This is going to be a Hungarian orchestra on tour who probably know they play this piece more times than I've been alive.
Right.
But it's going to be different every night because we're different.
Right.
I'm different. They're different. I'm going to come up with a different idea. The venue is different. The audience is different. So my job is to make it interesting and exciting and to bring a new angle to it every time I get up there. And the energy of that keeps me going. That's why I live.
Right. So kind of the answer is that it's important for you to have an artistic expression, but also to give something to the audience, and that excitement of putting something new together and seeing what you can create in that instance with those circumstances in that place is kind of exciting. It's thrilling.
I like it.
Yeah. So do you think that the composer has I think that the composer has a very big presence in what we do. You sell tickets because it's Beethoven, right?
It's the holy. I mean, it's like the pillars of Western culture, right? Beethoven, and Bach, and Handel, and Mozart. I mean, and Prokofiev and Tchaikovsky and all of our great composers. Grieg, of course, in your country. I'm a huge big.
Yeah.
So these are the pillars of our Western culture. These people were giants in our field.
Right.
Beethoven, if you take a boulder and a calm sea, Beethoven tossed the boulder and the ripple of the waves. We're still feeling those ripples, right? He's still that powerful. His force of personality speaks in every phrase he wrote.
Right.
And for me, it's why. What makes it so great? And giving that distillation of my view of that to the audience is very powerful. But from the audience's perspective, I think that it's rediscovering these pieces or discovering for the first time. Anyone who tells me, I teach undergraduates and I teach a course for non-majors. So people who have maybe never heard a classical piece before. My job is to show them why this Western art tradition is so important and what it's all about.
Wow.
And it is powerful.
Right. So the question about I want to get to with the composer. Do you think that the role that the composer has, or these like legends that we have, do you think that the role is too big, or do you think it's accurate?
I think it's accurate, but I think there's place for more. I think there's people who are just as good right now who are those people today. And I think we have to always be looking for that as well. It's hard. I mean, it's it's not as easy, but it's really important that we give voice to our composers of today, because they're always there. I mean, we just have to, we can't think that there were only giants walking the earth, dinosaurs back then. There are dinosaurs right now. I'm in New York and I work with composers, and there's a couple who are they're geniuses, and you're like, wow, there's something. What they have to say is so interesting. I did a podcast with one of my idols, one of my he's a famous author, but he's the only author I know who's also a very prominent composer and taught at New England Conservatory for many years. So Jan Swafford, who's written the biography of Mozart, Beethoven, and the most important one on Charles Ives, Brahms. I mean, this guy's 1,000-page volumes on these people. Also a very interesting man, funny, humorous, brilliant. I mean, like his inspiration inspired me very much. I learned a lot. I learned so much from talking to him. He said that the composers of today stand at the wreckage of all the previous composition schools, and they just take the pieces and put them together and with their own things and come up with something new. And I think that's what we are today, is what style are we in? And it's this kind of pan style where it's minimalist mixed with the atonal school, atonal mixed with some romanticism. Of course, we have the minimalist, we have this kind of Hollywood film scores. There's all this stuff happening concurrently. And classical music has to fight for market share, right? There's never been as much entertainment as there is today.
Okay, so it has never been as much entertainment as it is today.
With you, I'm in your generation, certainly. My sons, my children, I have 4 children, and they're 23, twin 19, and 17. So I'm always fascinated by what they watch, what they consume, and why.
Okay. So you said that we have a lot of options today compared to before.
More than ever, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So then I misheard what you said. But yeah, I completely agree. So, maybe the question is, what is classical music? Because let's say that I want to sell a show or a concert, right? And I'm looking at how the opera does it, or how the Philharmonic does it, right? They sell through these amazing legends that we have, and of course they are
Verdi,
right, and of course they are amazing, right? But then, and I promise you that you and me, mostly you, can hear the differences in different productions, right? And we can see the nuances and so on. But with recordings and with people doing kind of the same thing, and when we have to follow a score that says this piece right here and here and here, of course everything is different. But to the average person that doesn't listen to classical music, is it really different? You know what I'm saying? So that's not in a way making something bad out of us. I'm just asking, like, if you look at what is classical music, I think that it's a genre, and maybe that a genre is defined by values and rules. We do this, we are about this, right? And that's very good. But what is kind of the future there? Because I think that the music that we have is very good, but will it continue to be relevant 100 years from now? I mean, now the only thing I watch on my phone is TikTok, right? Sorry. It's true. I don't watch a lot of other stuff, or Instagram Reels I watch. For our Wagner, is it possible? What do you think?
Boy, yeah, this is the question everyone's asking, and I think that some of the solutions that the big A houses have been doing is hiring film directors. I've conducted productions that are based off comic book strips, Japanese anime. I mean, inspired opera productions. I mean, you're seeing people try to bring a different look and voice. I keep hearing, this is not your grandmother's opera company. I keep hearing that type of, and there's validity in that, because what makes any art great is the fact that it's universal human themes.
Human themes?
It's also what makes great television. It's also what makes great movies. It's universal human themes.
Okay.
Gladiator to me was I love that movie. I watch that every day.
Okay.
Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
I make my kids watch. We all love.
Nice.
But Lord of the Rings or something like how about Lord of the Rings? That's like very operatic. It's very Wagner, right? We have leitmotifs for each character. We have beautiful cinematography and sweet epics. That's Wagner, right?
Yeah.
Before Wagner would have done that if he could. He didn't exist. Right? He did everything he could and added.
There's this really fun quote by a guy named Seth Godin, which is, if Shakespeare would have been alive today, he would have blogged, right?
Probably, yeah.
Probably, yeah, right.
Beethoven would have written for a much bigger orchestra because the instruments didn't exist. Some of them he didn't have. I think Bach, same thing. We think about that. I think all these innovators would have kept innovating. Right. It's just they innovate within their time.
Right. So then the thing is, if we want innovation, if we want cool new stuff, but we also, the thing is values here, right? If I come in and we say we're gonna do something completely different, then everyone will say, hey, no, this is not what we're about, right? And that is completely valid, absolutely. So then how do we
someone like Sondheim, Stephen Sondheim in the musical theater field, who did study classical and study with John Cage and studied modern classical techniques, but applied that to Broadway musical theater and created this kind of new genre of really high level, very complicated, almost opera. He hated opera, but he said at least he hated opera, but he was writing opera. He just didn't know it.
Right.
Because what is opera?
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of really good New York about musical theater / opera crossover composers who are creating some very dynamic music that is right in the middle of both genres. I think crossing those borders. Musical theater has always been an area of growth, just like opera has. It grew out of opera. It's more like the commercial arm of opera, right?
Right.
It's gone in different ways commercially, but opera has become a little more like the traditional, maintaining the old school.
Right. So then, or if I ask this, let's say that I would do a production and we would do Le Nozze di Figaro, or we would do the Magic Flute, right? And then I would say, I want this to be much more reachable. So we're not going to make it 2 hours, 3 hours. We're going to make it 1 hour. And we're going to cut some music. We're going to do some other stuff. Right now, this is not really acceptable. But what is acceptable is changing the scenery.
It wouldn't be acceptable at like the A House. Right. But it would be acceptable if you're producing at a smaller theater with an edgy cast. I'm seeing that in different places. In fact, some of the productions I'm doing trimmed the shows down quite a bit because if you keep, the recitals can be very long. People aren't used to such long shows. So to trim it down is really contemporary. I think it's valid in a way.
Beautiful answer. I think this is the answer, because when I'm thinking like, can this, listen, I don't want to be the guy who is hacking on our tradition. Like, that's absolutely not my point. It is amazing in every way, right? But if for me, my experience with art and with my performance is always based in the audience and the audience expectations, and then you need to listen to them. And I think that the answer you said there is so extremely true, meaning that the big ones, the ones that are already have funding, that ones that already are established, and then that they have to change their whole institution for something else, I see that as being very unlikely. I feel that people like maybe you and me would be the ones that are driving something, or small people, entrepreneurs, whatever, can drive this change a lot more. And when something is working, when we are seeing that someone loves this, then the bigger ones will jump on a new concept.
Yeah, even they're dictated by their audience, eventually by the changes, and we're seeing a lot of very high level. Like when the economy went south, there was no second theater, right, in New York City. But then we saw the growth of a bunch of smaller companies that were doing very interesting and edgy work.
Right.
There's validity in that. When I was seeing non-traditional venues, because they couldn't afford big union theaters, so they went to these non-traditional, and opera was produced in chambers for a long time. So going to see a show in a subway car with having a beer, I mean, it was like I was going to a rock club.
Wow.
I like to go to rock clubs. There's something immediate about that.
Yes.
My son's a fusion rock drummer, a jazz drummer.
Wow.
I go to a lot of these places. I'm like, man, the audience is in this. They're in this. I want my classic audience to be in this too.
Yeah.
I don't want to just they sit there and, oh, that's nice. No, you have
Right.
to feel something. You have to
Right.
feel something.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I just saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers at massive
Okay.
in a stadium.
Oh,
My
wow.
oldest son Quentin is a huge fan, so I bought him
Okay.
tickets for his birthday. I spent a
Oh,
fortune. But
wow.
we watched this concert, and man, people were into every
Yeah.
moment.
Oh,
I'm like, boy, wouldn't it be great if my classical colleagues could get some of what they're doing, like some of the direct, immediate impact of this. I mean, the visuals were gorgeous, the film
right.
angles were gorgeous, the music was great. I thought they were really
Right.
into it. The ensemble was quite tight,
Yeah.
and it was fun.
Right. I think that's so accurate. And I do think that what we said earlier, meaning that we will find a solution. Like the solution is here, right? We're just willing to have to look at it and change. And I think that we can call it classical music, and I think that it absolutely will be classical music. Just but I think that the point has to be maybe that we are playing Beethoven even though we are changing in his score. What do you think about that? Is it okay as a director, in an opera, that the director can change, anything on stage?
Europe is doing it. My gosh, Europe is
Right.
doing it, right? I mean, the German houses take the story and they just like
Yeah.
sometimes they mangle it beyond
They go
recognition,
crazy. Yeah, yeah.
and people just close their eyes and listen to the music.
Right.
I've had friends who did a very famous singer at the Metropolitan Opera who's a
Right.
big star. He was
Right.
on the podcast. He's a friend, and he
Okay.
was telling me that he did a Rigoletto, and it was the Planet of the Apes, and he was dressed as an ape, and like the
Right.
other one was dressed as something else, and it made no sense with the plot. He was
Yeah.
in tears every night because the audience booed so loud. He was
Wow.
getting ready to jump on the plane and go home. He was getting paid a fortune.
Oh,
Like the cast was
wow.
the top in the business, and the conductor
Wow.
was the top in the business, but they were booing
Wow.
because of the production.
Wow.
And it's
So,
like
yeah.
he felt so bad about that. But maybe as actors and people, as a conductor, I do my job when I do productions, and sometimes I don't choose them. I just am hired to do it. So,
Right.
but
So,
sometimes it really works. If the director's got a sound concept, it can really work. Sometimes it
right.
doesn't.
Right. So my question is to you: do you think that it's okay to dabble in someone's music for
Yeah,
finding solutions?
I'll give you an example. My first opera with Light Opera of New Jersey was kind of an experiment, and I wasn't sure if it was going to be accepted in more conservative. They've always done conservative productions of
Hmm.
operettas and sort of
Hmm.
operas.
Yeah.
So I did La Boheme as my first show because I'm an
Wow.
opera. So I came
Yeah.
back, and we set it in New York City in the current time, and it dealt with homelessness and it dealt with
Wow.
poverty
Wow.
because that's what the show deals with in the show. It's about four
Wow.
poor artists, right? Starving and living in the freezing garret in Paris. We just
Wow.
translated it to modern New York City with homelessness as being Mimi was homeless
Perfect.
at the end. She died homeless in an encampment, and it was. And my director was she's a very very she's an opera singer who had a great career and
Mm.
was quite brilliant about. She was able to translate it and keep the integrity of the story.
Right.
I'm not going to let anyone mangle the story. That's where like it has to be told, and the music has to be accurately. There has to be. We can't you can make changes. You can we did some things where we added video clips and we added videography and we used projections. That was very effective.
Mm.
People and the audience really loved it. They were overwhelmingly supportive. I was a little nervous because
Right.
when you start dabbling with that. I mean,
Yeah.
at the same time, if it's done with integrity, it can work.
Right. So then this word is very, very important, right? Integrity, because integrity is about showing that we are wanting to change something, but we are still giving um, giving space, giving showing respect for where we are coming from, or that's how I choose to interpret it. What do you think? What is integrity when it comes to a production like that?
It's I guess that's where someone like myself or some more person in my seat has to really understand and have strong opinions and
Mm-hmm.
beliefs.
Right.
And that's where the rubber hits the road. You
Right.
could say I want to do modern, but it can be done in a way that ruins the source material, right? It
Right.
doesn't pay respect to what's great about these pieces.
Right.
What's great about these pieces is not that they're museum pieces that you can dust off the shelf and shine up and put it on the stage. What makes them great is
Mm.
that people in any generation, in any time period, now or 1,000 years down the road, perhaps, can
Mm-hmm.
find validity because we still experience loss and love and jealousy and hate and revenge. Those are
Mm.
still feelings we associate.
Right.
And that'll never change as part of the human condition. These pieces
Right.
identify the human condition.
Right.
They're not living pieces, but living, breathing documents.
Right. So is is the brilliance of someone like Beethoven or like Mozart, is the brilliance in the human condition and in these emotions, not in the exact form that they put it up in? What do you think?
I think so. I think Beethoven knew that he was writing music that his people was, Beethoven was the first generation who was writing music for the future.
Right.
I mean, Mozart was writing for very specific audiences,
right.
providing great and great musical entertainment for these people at a very high level.
Right.
But he probably wouldn't have thought, like, the symphony changed during Mozart's lifetime. The symphony when his father was writing symphonies was an amateur musical art form that community members would share.
Right.
That changed during Mozart as the birth of professional orchestras, court orchestras became higher level. Mozart was writing for those, and the level got higher and higher. Beethoven absorbed that with Haydn. They absorbed that and were writing for higher and higher. And by the time Beethoven came along, his music would have been unplayable by a lot of the orchestras.
Right. Yeah.
The Ninth Symphony, we had to reinvent. We had to invent technique in conservatories that people could play these things. Like the bass parts in Beethoven Ninth were unplayable in his time period. They couldn't play. It was like beyond their capabilities. Now we've trained it into our players, so it's been retroactively changed. We see the same with every great composer. They innovate, right? They innovate. And the next generation absorbs that as part of our performance practice.
Right.
So I think it's an ever-growing process. I think Beethoven was writing music for the future, and he was adding more personal narrative to the music. Right. Certainly spoke to the Romantics when they saw that. They were like, "We can do that." And then the tone poem, became the art form. More narrative, more of ourself, more individualism. I think that's interesting.
Right. Because in your first sentence is very individualistic, right? Or the one that I read to you being, it is my goal to roll back the curtains and reveal the person behind the art, right? So tell me, is art individual?
I think it has to be. Okay. Because one person doesn't like opera, one person doesn't like Puccini, one person doesn't like Stravinsky. I mean, I like it all. I find that I look for what's interesting in each composer's output. I love to challenge myself by learning new pieces. But not everyone likes the same thing. That's what makes human condition interesting. It's like we're not robots. Right. Not everyone likes Symphony No. 3. Not everyone likes Symphony No. 4. A lot of my favorite musicians always say 4 and 8 because no one likes those. So then they have to say that. But everyone's got their own personal spin.
Yeah, I like the 4. Yeah. Okay.
So I think that it has to be personal because we're different people, and that's what makes that's why every podcast I do, it's not about me. It's about them. It's about what makes them interesting, and it's my job to make them interesting and to bring that to people's attention.
Right.
I think that every great composer is a fascinating topic. I wonder, what would I ask Beethoven if I could have a beer with Beethoven? What would we talk about? What would I ask him? What would he talk about? I asked that to Jan Swafford, who knows a lot more than me, and who sat down holding the manuscripts in a museum. And it's like, he said I wouldn't ask him about compositional technique because he wouldn't tell me, because he wouldn't want me in his kitchen. But I would ask him about why he decided to do certain things, or it's we can't have that conversation without an Ouija board now. But that's personally why I work working with living composers, because I can ask questions.
Right.
And I can't ask my dead colleagues.
That's true. That's very true. So then if the I lost it here. If the I completely lost my question. No, I lost it. Sorry.
We're talking about artistic individualism. I think that I think each of us.
Oh, right. So why does someone like a genre? Is it that I listen to Beethoven and I feel this is amazing?
Why does my girlfriend like certain colored dresses, or why do we like our houses painted a certain room? I think humans have innate cultural choices, and maybe it's based on where we grew up, or how we're raised, how we see the world. Is it social? Is it political? Who knows? I mean, that's what makes humanity so fascinating. Is like we're so different. Yet in the end, we're not that different, right?
Right.
I always think that when I conduct in a different place, in different country, different culture, how different we are. I study and then I get there and I'm like, oh, we're all musicians. We're all artists. Like many of us have kids, many of us have significant others. It's like the human condition is not that different.
Right. So my like why this question of because I also believe that it's absolutely individual, but I also think that we can define some things that are better than others. So for example, when we talk about good food, we're going to talk about stuff that has fat, sugar, and salt, right? I'm not gonna say, or the person that says that they like, carpet with mayonnaise, right? It's not gonna. This is not true, right? So there is some things that we like more than others. So like, why do classical music? Why do someone like classical music? And I think it's part of it. The answer, at least, is that we like to be associated with this group. We like to be someone that is in this group that are that like high art or whatever. And maybe someone
how we're raised. If you experience it at a younger age, you're more likely to appreciate it when you get to be adulthood.
Right.
I think that's the start of it. I encourage my undergraduates. If they take my class, they have to go to a concert.
Okay.
And I can tell you that of my, let's say, 35 kids in that class, 35 students at the undergraduate level,
right,
probably 40% had never been to a live performance before.
Okay.
Any genre, which I find shocking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, rock, jazz, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. Like, well, I make them go to a classical concert and talk about it, but I give them the arsenal to understand some of it, like the vocabulary to use to talk about the instrumental families, what they're hearing. That's really important to understanding. You have to take down the barriers.
Right.
A lot of it is, in America, I can speak for America because I live here, is that we see less at the public schools.
Right.
If they're not being introduced to this at home or in the public schools, they're not going to suddenly like this.
Right.
I mean, I like pop music. I like rock music. I like contemporary music. I interview pop artists on my podcast. I find a lot of them fascinating.
Absolutely.
Their impact and what they're doing with their lives, and the way they can create music that speaks to people immediately. I think that's really valuable. We can learn lessons from that. At the same time, I feel for my, like you at your age, you have to at least listen to jazz and give it a try. Listen to classical, give it a try. You don't know yet.
Right.
If I listen to the same music now that I listened to when I was 18,
right,
my life would be so much more boring.
Right. That's so true.
I read the same books. I mean,
right.
I've been through my doctorate. I've been through a lot of life experience, and there's so much to absorb in life. And
and that's also like, what did you say?
It's an obsession, right?
It is.
Learning
Absolutely.
music and learning composers and learning new music. I just, there's not enough music in the world. There's way too much music in the world for me to ever get.
Right. So like the argument here, as I agree with, or what I agree with, is kind of a thing that contemporary composers bring a lot, which is it's not supposed to be easy to listen to me. It is work, or it's
it's not an. I mean, let's look at opera, for example.
Yeah.
Opera made the change around in 1920, right? And we call it the death of Puccini. Is in some scholars consider it the death of Italian opera. 1924, Puccini dies, leaving Turandot unfinished. And then where do all the great composers go? Do they just stop existing? No, they started writing film scores.
Right. Yeah.
Right. They changed mediums.
Right.
Film scores became the thing, and a lot of great composers went along with it.
Right. I interviewed 2 days ago. I interviewed Harry Waters, which is the son of Roger Waters, which is one of the creators of Pink Floyd.
Is his son a musician? I'm fascinated.
Yeah. So he works in LA on film music. Have you seen the episode came out on my channel 7 minutes ago, so you can watch it after this.
I will watch that because I'm fascinated. What do you, when your father has made such an incredible contribution to the world, like his dad did, I can't imagine like how hard it would be to find my own voice.
Absolutely. But it was really nice to talk to him because he works in LA, and he have you seen Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so he wrote the music for that, and done stuff like that. But it's so true. Like when I'm talking to him, because the film music is amazing.
Can
and
be.
you know,
Or it can be
program.
incredibly derivative and
Right.
boring, just a pale
Yeah.
carbon. I mean, my children are very much into video games, like playing
Right.
Skyrim or while they're playing
Right.
some video game. I
Yeah.
like them. I get it.
Yeah.
I have colleagues who are Broadway pit musicians who are playing video games now.
Right.
The union in New York had to address how much you pay for video game recordings because they're recording
Right.
full symphony orchestras and they were paying them nothing.
Oh, wow.
But
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
It is fascinating to see how it can be incredibly great or it can be just carbon copy.
Right. But if we play with this idea between music being something that is not, you know, just put on a soundtrack and listen, that it has to be something more, but also that it is important to have something that you can listen to, because otherwise you won't sell tickets, right? So then if the question is, where did the composer go? I think that your answer is really good, which is film music, because they're getting paid very well, first of all, and also they're getting paid to create something that has a function, or has something that people want to listen to. Sorry, but you know,
I guess I'll take that. I'm going to clarify that remark because they went in two different directions, right? They went into one, so absolutely. They went into the film score, popular music. Kurt Weill went to musical theater, right? And there was definitely that. And then the other direction went the opposite direction and went double down, atonal school.
Yeah. So that's where I'm coming to. That's where I'm going. So like the point of the atonal school, or Andra Wienerskolan in Swedish, and on all of this music is that it's first of all very fascinating. I have been to a lot of concerts. I like it in small doses, and
with the right composer, right? With the right composer,
right. But my problem there is I don't know what I'm doing, right? When I'm sitting there, if I listen to a rapper, or if I listen to Beethoven with a melody or whatever, I know what to listen to. I know I have these human condition, or what you called it, things that rules that I know to follow, things that I know. Okay, that is supposed to be good. That is they made a high note. The singer made a high note and it was beautiful, and that's good. Or the singer did a high note, but it wasn't good, right? But when it comes to contemporary music, it's like I don't know what to do now. Right. So my I'm asking, is it good to have that, but also maybe is it a problem that we're not creating something that people want to listen to?
It's interesting. Where did that music go? Ultimately, those composers are people who ran academia.
Mm-hmm.
All the composers, I mean, from when I was undergraduate, all of my composers were people pretty much who came out of that school.
Yes.
So they were writing serial music, they were writing serial composition. Yeah. And I would go to recitals and like, I was a kid, I didn't understand this at all. Like, sounds like, doesn't sound good. Now, you have to really love the mathematical principles behind it to understand it. Or, you know, and some composers are great enough where they can rise above that. Look at, for example, Stravinsky.
Right.
I think Stravinsky is up there with Beethoven personally.
Right.
His music is absolute genius.
Absolutely amazing. Absolutely.
He could take 100%. An octatonic scales and make them, doesn't matter. It doesn't bother me. It's like his creativity was off the charts.
Right.
A less talented composers, they're just following the footsteps of Schoenberg, who's a genius.
Right.
So, I mean, there's always lesser composers in every field, right? There's only great composers, only so many, right? There's like Schoenberg, Berg, Weber, and those are great composers who wrote masterworks. Now, to understand them properly, it's going to take a little more work, a little more time, a little more. You have to dig into that a little more before you can. It's not going to be like you put on Tchaikovsky. Yeah, that sounds beautiful. We understand that. If you've ever watched a sweeping love scene in a movie, you understand Tchaikovsky. It's great stuff. It's not hard to get that.
Yeah.
But I think there's a place for everything, and there's an audience for everything. If you're going to try to make a lot of money, probably doing atonal music is not, if it's not entertainment per se.
Right.
Although I love to tell my students and my kids that if you want to see expressionistic music in the public, watch any horror movie, and you're watching expressionistic music.
Very true.
They're just like aping that style. They're just kind of recreating that style in their own way. But you have to know that style to be able to create it.
Right. So So because and I like that point, which is the individualistic point with it, which is, hey, if I don't want to make a lot of money, of course I can do this, right? And it's your choice what you want to do, right? And
And
that,
a lot of them are wonderful academics and have huge tenured careers at major
yeah,
universities, and they're teaching and making an impact. So it just
right,
depends on what your goals are in life. I mean, I had
right,
really good, those professors taught me more about Beethoven than I could ever, the retrograde inversion of the theme. How Beethoven was so creative in using material. A lot of them do the same thing, but just with a different tonal resource.
right. So there, um, okay, so next question. What do you think, if we have like stages? We had romantic music and we had baroque and we now have atonal music, or what we want to call it, contemporary. What do you think the next step is? Like what we will see in 10,
From the
30 years?
people who are much smarter than me that I've spoken to and I've read, and I think we're in the post-tonal era.
Mm-hmm.
And just from my point of view,
Mm-hmm.
we're seeing the rebirth of tonality, but changed, right? Maybe the Schoenberg's quote was, he goes, if in 20 in 50 years people can sing Erwartung in the streets.
Right.
We never quite got there. We're not, the audience is
Right.
not whistling the tune to Erwartung.
Right.
That never happened.
Yeah.
So, and I can't hear a retrograde inversion of a tone row even now, even after a whole lifetime of engagement with music. It's just not
Yeah.
possible.
Right.
Our brains don't work that way, right?
Right.
But I think that that experiment has produced some masterworks. But I think that composers have primarily maybe adopted some of the concepts, but a lot of composers have rediscovered tonality,
Mm-hmm.
like the work of the minimalists, right? I
Right.
think Arvo Pärt, one of my favorite
Right.
composers,
Yeah.
Planet,
Yeah. That is the name
um,
that comes to mind. Yeah.
and
Mm.
Philip Glass and
Mm-hmm.
John Adams, all these composers who've rediscovered tonality but adapted it to their own unique style. Um, I just think it's just as modern, just as interesting, but I think there is, and that if you look at film scores, yeah, every time I turn on a TV, there's like minimalism
Right.
become mainstream to the
Right.
extreme. You see every movie that minimalistic kind of vibe that they set up, and I think it's really cool.
Right. Yeah. So like my answer to what's next is that it's also everything's so meta. Like everything is so conscious of itself, and everyone knows all the genres that has been before. They know that this has been done before. They're so conscious of themselves. So I think that maybe we will not get like a clear next phase, but maybe it will be more of an
We're only going
open.
to know what it is when we're dead. When,
Right.
when, when scholars look back at the music that's the best of what's been written while we're here, and 100 years from now they can distill that into the best and come up with trends. I think those trends, like history, is only written after it happens.
Right.
It's impossible to see, to assess your position in time because we just don't know. We haven't had
Right.
people talking about it, writing about
Right.
it.
I think that you can't know, but I think that we can make an educated guess, and I think that's kind of what I'm trying to do now. But yeah, I think absolutely that we will find kind of a balance, and I think that the balance, if instead of we looking at different genres of music, if we look at values, and if we have like tradition, and then we have more of entertainment, and then we have more of the postmodern, if we divide it by those three components, I think that we will find cool new mixes with all of them, and more of cool mixes. And I think that it will
Look at
go
Arvo Pärt. Look at
right.
Arvo Pärt, who started writing minimalist. He started writing serial music when he first started, and didn't work for him. He wasn't
Mm.
happy. He was fiercely repressed by the Soviet occupiers at the time. And then, and I mean, like, he's the most countercultural person I can think of. He's
Right.
writing religious music and music
Right.
for traditional orchestra in this generation, in the last generation, and it speaks to millions of people,
It
and it
does. Yeah.
crosses over me. Probably he was. I love this statistic. I do lectures on Arvo Pärt. He
Mm.
he was the most published and performed composer
Yeah.
alive
Yeah.
from like 2015 to 2018,
Yeah.
and he beat out John Williams.
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
How is
It's
that possible?
insane.
You're like,
Yeah.
that
It's
can't be right
insane.
because
Yeah.
Jaws, Star Wars. I mean, but this
Yeah.
man, in his quiet and unassuming way,
Yeah.
just wrote music. And I think that with all the stress of modern life and the anxiety and the political divides, he tapped into something eternal and universal that it's a genius to do.
Right. So then, what do you, if you were the maker of the world and you were to envision the future that we have for our industry or for our life? This is an easy question. Then what? How would you envision classical music being in 10, 20, 30 years?
That's fascinating. Hopefully I'll be there to experience it. But
yeah, you will.
I'm trying.
Don't worry, you're 40. You have 40 years left.
It goes fast, my friend. I don't feel old. I just love what I do, and I'm engaged with my art form 24/7, and it just it's exciting to watch it grow and to watch the people I work with grow and have huge careers. People like yourself are going to step up and add their unique contributions to it. I love learning from. I have composer friends who are in their 20s who are writing brilliant music, and I love to find their work. I have older composer friends who are also doing great work. I think we each every generation adds their unique voice to this great conversation of Western art, right? That goes back to the Greeks. I mean, from music, it goes back to the Middle Ages, right? But the Greeks built out of that. So we have this conversation, this game of telephone that goes back thousands of years, but continues to add new voices. I love that we're adding more multicultural voices to Western music. We're seeing an explosion of composers from the East. And artists from the East. I hire so many different Eastern artists.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it just adds more diversity to this culture. We call it Western music. We're adding so many voices from other parts of the world now.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, from a diversity, it's good to have diversity, but also just from an art perspective, like so cool the combinations and stuff we can create. So that is another topic. But that is also something that I'm very fascinated.
I think that's as our culture has become more mixed. I think it's fascinating to see how that affects our art, and I think that's going to continue to be the case.
Right.
And I embrace it as much as I can, and I look for artists and composers and artists who come from different places and have different ways of thinking about music, and it makes our Western conversation more rich.
Right. So then, last question. Tell me what you tell me the thing that you think. Tell me something that you think is incredibly beautiful with classical music, and then we'll end.
I think that no matter who you are or where you're from, you can appreciate the power of this art form, that it's constantly being reinvented by people like you and I from different generations. We can take the same piece and experience it and find different beauty in it.
Right.
It's like looking at a painting at the Louvre that people have been looking at for hundreds of years. But every time you change an angle, there's still something to see, right?
Yeah.
When I'm 80 and I'm conducting Beethoven 5, I'm still going to find something in this music that I didn't think about before. It's humbling. It's very humbling because, even though I've lived with this piece for most of my adult life, I can find new beauty, even the most basic piece. So there's it's a world to discover. It's a world to live in, whether you're an artist or whether you're someone who just loves this music or just has a passion for it. I think that it deepens your understanding of humanity, of your ability to see beauty. I think I just think that there's so much there, and that future generations can grow with, that can deepen their understanding of themselves by learning this.
Right. Beautiful. I agree. Endless beauty.
Well,
Jason, thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate this from you.
Much appreciated, Oskar. Continued success in your thinking and your entrepreneurship and your music making, and I hope we get to work together someday.
Well, thank you for this call. Take care.
Continued success, and I hope we touch base soon.
Perfect.